you're in a pay-to-play society. Think about like COVID when that happened, right? There were times where you can go to a spot, you can work on a job, you can travel to a place, you can eat in a restaurant unless you got that vaccination. So that's the whole point of living in society sometimes.
That's when Photoshop was sick.
Welcome back to another episode of The Careful Boys. And did you guys know that measles cases in the US have surged to over 1,136 in the first 2 months of 2026?
What's measles? I don't even know.
Hell yeah, brother.
That's just some Great Depression disease or something.
I think it's because
like-
people don't get the vaccines anymore.
Is it bumps on your skin or what is it?
I think so. I think it's the old timey one.
It sounds like a rodent.
Like a weasel?
Yeah.
Measles is a highly contagious...
A weasel and measles attack.
Measles is a highly contagious, serious viral infection caused by the measles virus, characterized by high fever, cough, runny nose, red eyes, and a spreading red rash.
Red eyes?
It spreads through airborne droplets from coughing or sneezing and can live in the air for up to 2 hours. No specific antiviral cure, so treatment focuses on symptom relief, such as fluids and fever reducers.
Oh, we don't got no cure for that?
Vaccinations is the best prevention.
Oh.
So people are not getting vaccinated.
So it's not a cure in that you get it and then you get a shot and it's like it's gone. It's like
You got to be preventative. Get the vaccine first.
Exactly. And yes, to answer your question, most of those cases is because most of those people are unvaccinated. Most of those babies, most of those newborns and infants and stuff.
Hey. Are you Camp Novax?
That sounds like an actual camp, like Camp Novax.
Because I'm scared of that shit.
So this is an actually very serious conversation, honest thing that we just went through. And it comes down to, this is subjective, completely subjective. This is like, my family's opinion in terms of like me and Nina's decision making. But
Yeah, don't cancel them, okay?
yeah. So we actually went through a really, really interesting conversation about it because I think once we got on the train of like doing the unassisted home birth experience, it kind of put us into like a broader, crunchier lifestyle and mentality and perspective of stuff. And what I mean by that is like maybe our circumstance was that she didn't want to be in the hospital for XYZ reasons, but then once you like make that decision, you start like almost indoctrinating yourself into like all the other reasons that validate why you're not in either the hospital system.
Because you go down the other path.
Yeah, it's just like, more natural stuff, home birth stuff. Let's like not get these types of ingredients in the home or toxic chemicals. Let's make sure that we do this spiritually because this is a new age, more modern thinking that connects us actually back to a natural and original home human experience, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so in that comes also a little bit of the feeling and conversation of like vaccinations. Like, do you go... There is a more holistic and more natural kind of approach to like, delayed vaccination schedules, not getting certain things like the hepatitis B right away because like, even though that is a sexually transmitted disease, the only reason why they want babies to get it is because of how fucked up the situation turns if in the worst situation that they do contract that virus. It's like definitely lethal. So the best way, even though it's typically sexually transmitted, it's like, well, you still get this because high risk parents that have the virus might be able to pass it on. It was like, what if you're not high risk? That's the whole conversation with the CDC nowadays.
Like in case your mom's fucking hoeing out and then her fucking pussy bleeds on you when you're giving birth, like that. That's how you get hepatitis B.
That's one of the biggest ways that they want to make sure that you get vaccinated.
Well, can't you just check if your mom been hoeing out or not?
Yeah, Anthony, fucking check.
Well, I think the whole point is that more moms be hoeing out than we know.
And they won't tell you. They're not gonna be honest about it.
But to answer your question, to go back though, is that we went into this whole thing and trying to figure out. We even looked up pediatricians in the area that are maybe more vaccine friendly in terms of the conversation. Because, for example, the CDC just put in those new guidelines, right?
Is vaccine friendly mean more vax or less vax?
No, I mean more open to talk and have a conversation.
Choose like, we want chicken pox. We don't want this.
I see.
Because I feel like most doctors will dismiss your worries.
Yeah, I see.
They'll be like, what are you worried about? Just fucking get the vaccines. Like,
You know how many millions of fucking babies do that shit?
yeah, and then that makes you feel like, well, I can't talk to you about this.
So more a la carte style.
Well, see, here's the thing. This is when you get into the specifics, though, because, for example, your health insurance provider for your kid that might be gotten through one of the parents' like companies or something like that. They might only work with these are the insurance coverers of like pediatrician or something. And then those guys, if they're claiming insurance, might have to follow certain rules. So then that's one boat. So now you have to kind of filter through how are you going to still be participant in like and not get dropped from an insurance carrier and still be able to have a little bit of that conversation or freedom of choice as a parent to work with your family the way that you think is ideal. But then you go into number 2. You think about like, okay, well, what's the real plan for this kid? At what age are they going to go into something like preschool or the schooling system? And then the schooling system has a mandate on vaccination because they're all their children have to be in the same space. So like even if we wanted to go no vax in Nevada, the CDC federally says they've changed the vaccination schedule so that it's more in line with like European, Norwegian, or whatever type of schedules and stuff. However, a lot of state they don't recognize that, like the what's called AAP or something, whatever, the pediatricians, blah blah blah, and health stuff. A lot of them recognize the old vaccination schedule, so their private practices or insurance-based practices are still honoring those things. Schools are still honoring the old schedule.
So the adoption takes time.
Yeah. So it's like then you get into a conversation, and I know it sounds crazy, but then you get into a little bit of a conversation of like being realistic. You're in a pay-to-play society. Think about like COVID when that happened. Right? There were times where you can go to a spot, you can work on a job, you can travel to a place, you can eat in a restaurant unless you got that vaccination. So that's the whole point of living in society sometimes.
That's when Photoshop was sick.
That's what, but even that stuff, that was like a quick vaccine, which you can psyop it all you want, but like we're talking about the newborn vaccination schedule is like based off of 30 plus years of like data. So it's really hard to like change like a doctor's or a state's mentality of like the vaccination schedule just because people are getting a little bit more modern in thinking. There's more home births than they've been a long time because there's more cesareans than there's been a long time. There's more people wanting to have a delayed vaccine schedule, maybe because there's a correlation with more kids with autism or like other diseases. There's no data that's multi-generational that can prove anything against the science. So it's very hard. It's very hard to have an argument. But then you have to just check yourself and being like, well, what are things that I can't not do for this kid? I need to have health insurance that works in this capacity for like our budget. And then we also need to be able to have them participate in these versions of like society and school. So for us to like choose and fight against the system more is like, are we doing that because we've been falling in line with this like more naturalistic thing just because we went through the home birth, or like have we been anti-vaccine the whole time?
Where did you guys like I guess realize you guys landed on?
So we actually had to like research a couple different pediatricians. We called a couple different places to verify whether they would take the insurance if we were still a certain way with our conversations with the doctor. We went in and saw a doctor, and he was still the funny thing is I was like, shooting the shit with the doctor, trying to build some rapport. And then he was like, oh yeah, when I brought my kids over here, we immigrated, I still got these blah, 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 blah. I'm shooting the shit. And I'm like, oh, okay, like where were the kids born? And he's talking about how they were born or came over from Israel. Right. Of course, the funnier part of me who does JK News is just like, oh, fuck, dude.
Like, you guys ruined the world like that?
I'm like, wait a minute. Us trying to go anti-vaccine is trying to go against like, big pharma. Trying to go against big pharma is trying to go against big money. Trying to go against big money is trying to go against that. So
that's what it feels like.
So it's funny all that happening in my head at the same time. And Nina's probably just kind of like, taking it a little bit over her head, but I'm laughing for a moment quietly, but then I'm also like, oh yeah, I've been to Tel Aviv. So this guy's looking at this Asian couple in his office with a newborn who's having, hesitations about the vaccine schedule, but this Chinese looking ass dude also has been to Tel Aviv and Israel and stuff. So now he's like, okay, I've never done a home birth where I had to get a birth certificate, because also now you have to get a birth certificate notarized to prove to the state of Nevada that you had a kid, in order to get a social security number to prove to the federal government that your child exists, in order to qualify for the healthcare that is like predated. Anyways, there's a whole thing. So he's like, I know now for a fact he remembers who I am. I'm the Asian dude in his office that had a home birth that he had to get notarized.
Pretty unique.
I had a mobile notary come to the office in order to sign.
And he's like, and this guy dresses so cool. That's what he's thinking too.
All the kid stuff.
It's pretty interesting. But that was our situation. Thinking that we might have a little bit more freedoms with the times, and then still being like, hey, look, we got to pay to play a bit. and recognize like where we are and where we came from.
So he was pretty much encouraging you to get all the vaccines,
He was open to the conversation.
which I'm sure he gets a lot nowadays.
Do you guys know why it's so many more on the schedule? Like, so like when we all got vaccinated as kids or babies, I heard it's like it was like 10 or something, and now it's like 30.
I remember it. I remember because my mom didn't really speak English, going to my elementary school, you know, you have like, you bring the immunization card, and there's only a handful. It's like 10 or less things that you get vaccinated for, and you show the school and they're like approved. And then when Taika was born, yeah, there was like fucking like 30, and we said no to most of them.
Oh, so you could choose?
Yeah. Well, when they come, when they're in the hospital, they come. Do you want this? Like COVID was one of them. Like, well, do you want whatever? And then I was like, so I said no to hepatitis B. All the ones that I'm like, is he gonna die or not? And then the ones that he'll die, like fucking, I forgot which ones they were. I was like, okay, we'll get those. And then the other ones,
Like polio, you want?
yeah. But a lot of them I said no to. But I also think like the whole vaccination thing and being like 100% real, I feel like there could be some vaccines that causes his seizures. Because I don't have a history of seizures in my family. Gio doesn't. And so like even his neurologist is like, we don't even know where this came from. So it could be, and like what Anthony said, there is no multi-generational testing. So everything is like, oh yeah, take this. This is great for you. But have they studied like this person's lifespan, passing it on to another lifespan, and then we don't really have data. It's just, this is good, take it.
There's some really good mini docs about how the more recent vaccinations have been heavily lobbied, and it's really disheartening. Yeah, because you really learn about how many of these. I mean, like not the ones we grew up with, but how a lot of the vaccines are basically like people being like, I gotta get my vaccine in there. I gotta get mine in the schedule because they'll just be paid out for fucking life.
Almost like getting a patent, like getting a trademark, huh?
It's mega generational wealth. Yeah. It's like if you're on the schedule, like if you become a mandated vaccine, like as a producer, like when you really research like who actually was trying to get theirs in and the kind of rationale that they put forward to try to convince, you know, the guidelines, it's fucking nuts, bro.
This is not for the betterment of mankind.
Homie trying to get a record deal right now.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, listen to my mixtape, please.
That's the thing. It's like not all vaccines are created equal. You know, some of them are highly opportunistic, and you know,
some was to survive, like help humans survive.
But it's really complex because I think there's this there's this duality between the idea of getting a vaccine is, as much as it's a personal decision, the concept of a vaccine is a social and community minded process, right? Because like it's like everybody's basically comparing vaccines to like polio when it damn near like wiped out all this stuff. So the whole point is to be preventative. Now we're gonna do these and put them in the schedule so we don't face a near extinct kind of like situation. But now we look at like 1,000 cases, so we need to make sure we put this thing in the system. But like 1,000 cases, from a numbers perspective, you could say like one child's life is too much. Obviously, I get that.
If you're retarded, it's technically nothing.
That's the thing, though. So now imagine like everybody from like this, you know, from this moment for the next XYZ indefinite amount of years, every kid born in the system, so to speak, has to go through this vaccine. But maybe there were like 30,000 cases. Yeah. So it's like it's really tough because you, again, no multi-generational data, but you're doing things because of what could happen.
But not all of it. Like some of it's like when you think about how hard people criticize government opportunistic people and how like they'll, you know, the greediness of it, to think that vaccinations are invincible from that is naive, I think.
Yeah. But there is like actual, so if you think about how when it first came out, a lot of people were able to survive. Like if you think about history where Native Americans didn't have immunity, so when they got hit with shit, millions got wiped out, right? But if we think about Europeans getting immunity naturally, they didn't have vaccines back then, and then they built like just through natural selection, people died, and some people that survived, they had the immunity. So I'm like, that might be a more brutal process, but it's a natural process, but we don't have that anymore because of vaccines. So
which that's the whole point again. We're trying to account for like the many, and in order to do that, everybody's in one sense got to like recognize that they're part of that society, therefore participating in the society's rules may be sometimes a more important decision to make than like your own just freedom of choice. I've got some homies, really, really close friends that have like a couple kids, like all home birth, 0 vaccines, not a single shot. But at the same time, you're committing to a life of homeschooling for until a certain age, so to speak. You're committing to the risk of like if they contract anything,
Get bubonic plague, bro.
yeah, like it goes down hard. You're committing to also like, you know, absolute natural healthy, like you said, kind of like maybe more barbaric but like more powerful. They're going to be immune to like hella other shit too, but like it's just a gamble that you're deciding. So I genuinely still respect everybody for their own choice on what they do. I just realized, like, at least for my child, where our lines were, and that was a really interesting time to like talk through.
What's actually just gonna save their lives? Doctors in the comments, let me know.